welcome everyone. Welcome to our Practice Builders webinar series. My name is Lara Kalug, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Practice Builders. Today's webinar is titled The Top 10 Successful Practice Marketing Secrets. And before we get started, just wanted to quickly address a few items of the webinar. All attendees will be muted, and therefore if you have a question during the webinar, feel free to type it in the chat box located at the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel. And again, once the webinar has concluded, every registrant will receive a copy of the slides in addition to the recorded version of the webinar with audio. Again, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Vidal. He's our presenter for this evening. Jonathan is the Senior Director of Consulting Services at Practice Builders, and who has developed custom practice development strategies for all healthcare specialties. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you for the nice introduction, and welcome everyone to our seminar. We're looking forward to providing some hopefully very useful information about what we call the top 10 secrets. It's kind of my fun way of introducing the subject. A la David Letterman, we'll do our top 10 countdown. But we'll talk about those things that are very important in practices that are being successful in 2011 in marketing healthcare issues. And so you're going to learn a number of things today, but some of the key issues as we talk about professional referral marketing. We'll contrast the difference between the way it needs to be done in 2011 and sort of the old school collegial way of doing it, which there was nothing wrong with, but we'll talk about why that may not work in 2011. Talk about your patient's point of view and voice of the customer and how it's important to understand how they digest and want to hear material, and I'll show examples of some ads and things to make those points. But again, making the point that you have to put it in the voice of the customer and consumer digestible messaging. Easy to understand, simple messaging. Talk about how your practice is already a gold mine and we want to mine into that. We'll make that point. And then talk about how patients, even before 2011, were making healthcare decisions emotionally. It's easy to understand if a patient's in pain or if they are having an issue related to plastic surgery or these things, that they would be making emotional issues. I will make the point that patients, even picking their GP and internist, do it in emotional ways. And that's very unlike you, my target audience, who's an analytical audience, who really doesn't think like their patients. So, just briefly a little bit about Practice Builders for those that don't know. Practice Builders has been around for 30 years. Oldest firm in the nation doing this. Actually, this is our 31st year. And we only subspecialize in healthcare marketing. And just like you may be subspecialized in your healthcare area of healthcare or medicine, we see marketing and healthcare marketing as a unique subspecialty. And again, I'll make that point when I show some examples of ads created by regular marketing companies. Talk about websites, these types of things. Do invite you to go out and check out our website, practicebuilders.com. Get a lot more information there. So, let's start off and talk about the top 10 successful practice marketing secrets. Number 10. This is the important point that your marketing must appeal to your desired patient's point of view, not yours. This is what I like to call the forest for the trees. Patients interpret information, digest information in different ways than analytical practitioners. And so it's important that you write at their level, that you write in consumer digestible messaging, and this is a skill set. Understand things when we'll talk later about websites, that the average person spends about 15 to 30 seconds on a web page before they click. Can they look at your web page, get the essence of what you're trying to tell them without in-depthly reading the material before they click and move on? We'll talk about these things. I have some ads here that I actually pulled up that I want to use to make my points about voice of the customer and not speaking in voice of the customer. So this is actually a half-page newspaper ad that I removed from a newspaper, cut it off. The top half actually was the weather page, and I'll come back and speak about that. But the first question we'd have to ask ourselves is, as you look at this ad, it's hard to understand what is it we're advertising. Again, they're being a little bit too cute here, and I'll come back and explain what's being advertised. But remember, this decides whether the patient takes the time to read it. So what are the things that this marketing company did right? Well, first thing we have to ask, did they do right or not, is what's our targeted demographic age group? The average newspaper reader in this country is 58 years and up. Newspapers are dying on the vine. The only paper with increasing circulation is the New York Times. They're talking about going all electronic. So if my target audience is not 58 and up, I shouldn't even be advertising here. Well, what are some of the things they did right? Well, they picked the weather page. You don't see it here, but it's the top of this ad. And most people who read the newspaper look at the weather page, so now I have the highest opportunity my ad will be seen. Remember, no one is reading the newspaper to read your ad. You must attract them in and get their attention. So, we took a half page on the weather page. Why is that good? Well, I'm not suggesting a practice would have to do that. That's quite expensive. But by taking a half page ad, I don't have to worry if any other ad is more attractive to the eye than my ad. If there were 4 ads on this page, even if it's the right demographic with the right message at the right time, if the other ads attract the eye more, my ad doesn't get read. So, by taking a half-page ad, I eliminate that issue. Now, where did we go wrong? We can all guess what this ad might be for, but probably none of us are going to guess it's for bariatric surgery. More importantly, stop 10 people on the street, ask them what bariatric surgery is, they won't have a clue. Nowhere does it say obesity, weight loss, a big person, little person, keep it simple. If you talk to this group of doctors, they'll tell you marketing doesn't work because I'm sure this ad got no response. Here's another one that's taken right off an airline magazine. This is an actual ad. I imagine that the medical practice that developed this ad wrote it themselves. It's very dreadful. It's too analytical. It's too full of information. It doesn't have what we call verbal-visual unity. The eye is not attracted anywhere. The yellow on blue is hard to read. But let's take the headline because that makes a decision whether the person reading the magazine is going to read the ad. So when the picture of health fades, time for a touch-up. What are we advertising? Looks to me like it could be plastic surgery or dermatology or something like that. If I'm reading the magazine and I have those issues, I may stop to read it. If I have a loved one that have those issues, I may stop to read it. I doubt anyone who has chronic degenerative, autoimmune, or infectious diseases would have stopped to read this ad, and that's what the advertisement is for. Here's another example. At least this marketing company, this is a plastic surgery ad, at least this marketing company knew, and this is when we talk about a brand in healthcare marketing. What is a brand in healthcare marketing? It's a unique value position or simply answering the question, why you versus another practice that does what you do. So look at any of your materials and see, does it answer that question, you uniquely? Or could I take your name off, put another practice's name on, and basically it works for them? I've told them nothing uniquely. This marketing company at least knew we got to tell them something unique about this plastic surgeon. So they discussed it with him, and the woman must have said that I understand these ratios, female plastic surgeon, female doctor, I can do all of this, and this is the dreadful analytical headline they came up with. But more importantly, look at the call to action. Ideal beauty and fertility. Baby making. I'm here to tell you that the majority of women in this country having plastic surgery are not out to make babies. They're not that interested. So this group doesn't understand their target audience. The target audience in plastic surgery, if you look at different reports, will show you that about 86% of people having plastic surgery are in a committed relationship. They're not interested in finding a man. About 89% of people having plastic surgery have just one thing they never liked about themselves they wanted changed. They're not interested in this total creation. But now let's say this headline was appropriate and it did appear to the target audience. Now we take some risk here. We throw out numbers. I'm not saying these numbers are right or wrong, but if my mind doesn't say 40, 28, 40 is ideal beauty and fertility, I've disconnected and I'm not going to call your ad. Here's another one. This is actually from the American Association of Periodontologists. So gum doctors have basically gotten into doing implants. It's good business, it's elective procedures, and this is the booklet that their society has told them to put out. Talk about not understanding voice of the customer. Look at that picture at the bottom. That's a very scary picture. Patients who see that are usually turned off and are not interested in implants. More importantly, if you're only suggesting one and they see a picture like that, they assume you've got to do all 3 of those because patients don't really understand. This is why it's well understood voice of the customer with marketing. If you have imagery, you don't want to have dissected illustrations. They think you're actually going to cut and do these types of things. Here's another one for a really novel system for orthodontics. It's called the Sure Smile system. It's nitinol wires. The orthodontist plans the treatment, but it decreases the time of the treatment from 4 years down to 9 months. And this is their brochure. I actually was in a client's office and I had a 12-year-old hand this to me and say, I could make this on the computer. So it's important to understand in 2011 what your materials are being compared to. What else do we know about voice of the customer? Well, you're my target audience and you're an analytic audience, so I look for analytical data. There isn't a lot in marketing, but here's a report that was put out by the American Medical Association Subcommittee on Health Literacy, and I only pulled out 3 salient points from that to make my point here, but talked about how only 35% of physicians are aware of this issue of health literacy. This is where patients come in and out of our practice. They don't seem to understand things. We become very full of buzzwords and acronyms and things like this. But how about this, folks? Greater than 50% of the population is below the literacy level. You know the show that's on TV, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Well, the reality is the majority of marketing material for patients should be written at the 5th grade level. Now, if anybody has concerns about that, know that all newspapers are written at the 5th grade level, and most people are not insulted or concerned when they're reading the newspaper. This is how you make consumer digestible information. All right, so that was number 10, voice of the customer. Let's talk about number 9. Opportunity costs are where the big dollars are captured or missed. Well, some of you may have retail style practices where you have an outlet that's in a shopping area or something like that, where you get 5 or 10% walk-in traffic. But the majority of people on the call tonight, all of the patients start as a phone call to the front desk. And so this is where it's very important that you have the right person at the front desk answering the phone call. And this is where we mean opportunity costs, or where the big dollars are captured or missed. You have a great ad, or you do professional referral marketing, or you have a fantastic website, it all results in the patient calling the front desk. And if you're not prepared for that, you can lose a lot of these. There's a number of studies out that say the average practice today, doing nothing different, doing no more marketing, loses almost 200 potential good patients because the phone is not handled correctly at the front desk. So I'll let you do the math yourself. If your average case value is Y, do Y times 200, and that's the amount of business you're losing today. In my example, I came up with an average case value of 500. If I miss 200 cases at the front desk who already know about me, who are already calling potentially to find out if they'd be interested in the practice, that's over $100,000 a year. This becomes critically important if you're doing any forms of marketing, because those will result in new and more increases in phone calls to your front desk. Number 8. People make healthcare decisions emotionally, they only justify rationally. So we talk about a number of factors here, and I will tell you that this is true even when people are picking GPs and internists. It's easy for us to understand people are making emotional decisions when we talk about patients in pain, or patients who are seeking plastic surgery or cosmetic procedures. Those things seem like emotional issues. But I will tell you that all patients are making emotional decisions. What's my proof point of this? My proof point is the fact that the strongest endorsement to go to a healthcare practice is a family, friend, or neighbor. That, bar none, will get somebody to go to a healthcare practice. Second strongest endorsement in 2011, although it's changing, is their doctor. If their doctor gives a firm endorsement, absolutely go here. It doesn't say here's 3 doctors you can go to. And so it's important to understand, going back to those opportunity costs at the front desk, the difference between what we call endorsed and non-endorsed patients. An endorsed patient has a reference for you, a referral, a friend, a family member, a doctor. If they're already endorsed, it's actually your patients to lose at the front desk. Because when they call, if the person's rushed or busy or doesn't have time to talk to them, they'll excuse that. My best friend said I should go here, they must just be having a bad day. If all they know about you is an ad, or they found you on the website and they call the front desk, how many of you close your office at lunchtime? When do you think the most common time, and the time when most patients have to call practices? Lunchtime. If all they've seen an ad on you and they call and the phone is not answered, they won't leave a message. Now, if their best friend has told them about you, they'll patiently wait. They'll wait till the answering machine picks up. They'll leave a message and they'll wait for a call back. But if they just found your website or read an ad and they call and they can't get somebody on the phone, so it's important to understand when you're running any types of marketing, you have to be ready to receive those patients. Number 7, effective marketing is not a sometimes thing, it's an all the time thing. When we talk about marketing, we talk about 5 different areas of marketing in a healthcare practice. The first we've already made some discussion about, which is your unique value position, or in MBA programs they might call it a unique sales position, or the YU. So what is your brand? What are you telling the marketplace that's different about you? Then internal marketing. Are you educating and informing every patient that comes through your practice so they can understand everything you can do for them, or refer more patients to you? Patient referral marketing, recognition, reward, how the phones are handled. Professional referral marketing if it's appropriate for your practice, and then external marketing. Whichever one of these buckets you play in, and all of us are certainly going to play in the first 3, we need to have one person in the practice responsible. It needs to be formally part of their duties, and they have to be able to dedicate the time to make sure this is ongoing and done all the time. Biggest mistake that practices make is they find somebody in their practice who doesn't seem busy and say, you're the marketing person. Or they give it to a person doesn't have the time to do it, who's responsible, but marketing needs to be done consistently all the time. And so it always seems to be that thing in most healthcare practices that can be put off. You know, if we're really busy this week, we'll do the marketing next week. And then we're really busy that week, we'll get to the marketing that week. Marketing is something you have to do consistently and all the time, and play in the buckets that are appropriate for your practice. Number 6, you're sitting on a gold mine. What is your gold mine? Your patients. What are you doing to mine into your gold mine, both as patients flow through your practice, or once patients have completed their treatment or are not going to be coming back except once a year, to make them aware of everything you do in your practice and everything that you can do for their patients. I have a number of stories from the groups I've consulted with, but one of my favorite is with orthopedic surgeons, where a patient has come back who's had a very nice knee procedure, is very thrilled. They're sitting across from the orthopedic surgeon and they look them in the eye and they say, my knee's wonderful, doc. You know, my shoulder's been bothering me. Do you know anybody who might do that? And of course the orthopedic surgeon looks at him and goes, why not me? This is a point to validate that people don't understand everything that can go on. If you're in an orthodontic practice and do braces, how many times have you had an adult ask you, because it looks like it's mainly children, do you know somebody who does adult braces when you do them? This means that we're not really mining into our gold mine and informing our patients of everything we do. Number 5. It's really important to understand, we've just gone from 2010 to 2011, so this slide says 2010, but in 2011, that a majority of patients 50 and under are evaluating practices by their website. And they will go out and they will look at a website, and based on the look of the website, they will say to themselves, this practice couldn't potentially be cutting edge, couldn't have the latest and greatest, look at their website. And then it's important to understand for those practices that deal with the older group, for audiologists who deal with hearing aids, for oncologists who deal with an older patient population, cardiologists who deal with an older patient population. First, 60-year-olds are the fastest growing segment, but it's important to understand with serious healthcare issues, their children or their grandchildren go out on the internet and check on you. And if your website doesn't say quality and doesn't say that we have all the latest and greatest, then they will be telling their parents you may not be the appropriate place to go. So let's talk a little bit about internet marketing here, just a tiny bit. You know, what are you doing with your internet marketing? You're communicating credibility, you're reinforcing your leading practice image, reinforcing that initial marketing impression, and a little hint that I think is important to understand, every page should have a simple way to email to family and friends. If patient endorsements are the strongest endorsement, we want somebody to be able to send your website off very simply. They should be able to do this from every single page with a simple click. There are groups out there that are blogging, there are moms groups, there are lots of different groups talking about these issues, and if one of your patients simply shoots off your website to 80, 90 groups in a blog or in a group of like-minded individuals, you've got an instant patient endorsement. And I actually have some practices, it took off in the Pacific Northwest strongly, but I actually have some practices up there that are living nothing but the internet and strings and connecting in this way. So again, just some more interesting statistics. You know, over 100 million people are online looking for information. Most businesses now have websites. A number of, almost 87% say this is their first contact. More than 60% say they would switch doctors based on a website. And all 20% of internet traffic is health related. And again, talked about how the 60-year-olds are the fastest growing demographic. There's articles today about how 80-year-olds are meeting on Twitter. So you need to know a couple of things. The thing is, we need to get up on the first page if we have a website. And so I'm not going to spend too much time this evening on these, but it's important to understand that your website has to be optimized with both on-page and off-page techniques, as well as the potential with using search engine marketing, which is pay-per-click, or these types of techniques to make sure you're up on the first page. And there's a lot of things that go into this in terms of coming up generically or organically. And again, I don't really have time for this today, but this slide is just meant to indicate that there's a lot of things involved in making sure that your website. First, we need a consumer digestible website. Then we need to make sure a technique gets it up on the first page. Just interesting statistics to back that up. This is a Yahoo Interactive survey, which really shows that almost 74% of patients don't even go past the first page. They get enough clicks on that page, and talks about some other statistics there. Another interesting recent Harris Interactive survey, whenever I have clients who say to me, I want better informed, well-insured patients, where do I find them, how do I find them? This Harris survey shows us that 71% of college-educated consumers are using the internet as a key source of healthcare decisions. We're strictly talking healthcare here, and that 45% of all consumers are using it for healthcare decisions. So I mentioned these two methods, the organic, which means that by the very nature of your website, it's valuable to the internet, and then also the pay-per-click. I'm just going to briefly show you some examples to help you understand that. This will be very quick. But in 2011, for a healthcare practice, you really only need to be optimized for Google. It's good to be optimized for everything else in certain settings, but predominantly Google is the big dog, and this comes from marketsharehitlinks.com. I updated this a few months ago. It's updated daily. You can go there, so the statistics may have shifted a little, but it really shows us that Google is the big dog. So what are these different things I'm talking about, generic or organic optimization or pay-per-click? Well, in the orange box up above and the orange arrow on the right, these are all the pay-per-click sites. These people are actually paying Google every time somebody selects them, and it's a bid process. In the center is called the Maps. That's actually a service of Google that these people are getting for free based on their location and if they're properly registered with Google. And everything in the green arrows down is the organic or generic methodology. So this is one of the things Practice Builders does. This is actually just a bill for 1 month for us for these two terms, health marketing and healthcare marketing. So if you go out on the internet, Google, you put in healthcare marketing, Practice Builders, and a pay-per-click strategy will come right up on the top. And it's one of our lowest cost of acquisition of clients. So just to give you an idea of how that works, I'm not going to go into that in too much depth this evening, but talking about these techniques and what's important for a practice. All right, number 4, people judge what they can see based on what they can see. So this is why in 2011 it's very important that your marketing create the right image. And I have sort of a wonderful little story that I like to tell when I do these seminars and workshops. I love going to Seattle. It's a beautiful city, and I'll have a number of practices there to hear me talk. And they'll have these burning questions about how they do different things. Get refers, get a patient, do this, that. But in Seattle, I'll always get the same question. It's how do I get the mighty Microsoft dollar? Microsoft was like Ford Motor Company was in the 1950s. $5 copays, no capitation, great orthodontic benefits, you know, just fabulous benefits that other companies don't offer in 2011. And you know what I tell them when they tell me they want to get the mighty Microsoft dollar? I tell them you can't do it through Microsoft Publishing. Everyone understands what you can do with a computer today. So you may not have had a website and you get one up and you're thrilled because it's so different. The reality is you have to understand what you're compared to and how in 2011 you have to create the right image. And so I'll just put up some material. This is material that we do, that we have developed. But the idea of this value imagery that you want to have in your brochures, it's pretty well understood. You want to represent your patient demographic target audience. People like to see themselves in the imagery, these types of things. So these are just some different types of brochures from different practices: plastic surgery, weight loss. This is a podiatry practice, to give you an idea of what that quality imagery should look like in 2011 and how you really can't do this on your own computer. Number 3, this is where it's important to understand if you're on a subspecialty referral, that in 2011, referral marketing must be handled very differently from old school techniques. Why? Well, we already talked about this a little bit, but patients have changed. World War II generation's on its way out. Baby boomers are in their 60s. Anyone after the baby boomers are more interested in what their peers think and what websites have to offer than they really are in what their doctors say. Now, depending on the age group, the 50-year-olds, probably 50–60% will take in account what their doctor recommends. World War II generation, lockstep. Yes, sir, doc, wherever you send me. Generations under the 50-year-olds, 40s, 30s, especially your 20-year-olds, their doctor's opinion is about 30%. It's one source. It's where I find somebody. Now let me go out. Let me do some information. Let me see if my friends know anything. Let me see what the website shows. The other thing in professional referral marketing for those specialties that work in the hospital, cardiologist, orthopedist, urologist, your referral sources are no longer in there, because in the last 10 to 15 years we've had the rise of the hospitalist. So the opportunity for this casual interaction no longer exists. This is why so many practices on a high subspecialty referral path actually use what's called practice liaisons. These are people that go out and call on the practice for the office, and their focus is actually calling on staff. It's not calling on the referral physician so much, because we find in 2011 that about 70 to 80% of patients are controlled by staff. And so it's really just keeping the two staffs happy, making sure they know everything that you do. And it's amazing how you actually are usually able to increase more patients referred to your practice out of practices that are already referring to you today, who, just like your own patients, don't really understand the totality of what you do. And by making them more aware of all your services, you can get additional patients. Number 2, marketing is a revenue center, not a cost center. And this is just important to understand that this is the way successful practices think. That successful practices look at marketing as a way to sculpt their practice, attract the type of patients they want, weather environmental conditions. Well, we've had a huge environmental condition in the economy. And I will tell you that those practices that have been marketing have been far more successful than those that haven't. What happens in a tough economy is the pool of patients shrinks, and now you have fewer patients to compete for. What I always tell my clients is there's plenty of patients to fill a practice. There may not be plenty of patients to fill all practices. So if you're not effectively marketing, you won't get your share. If you always think of marketing as a cost center, what is it costing me? What is it costing me? What is it costing me? And you're not investing properly, you will not have the success you need. If you think of it as a way to get the proper ROI, sculpt and shape your practice, attract those higher insured patients or better paying patients, whatever you would like, then you will see it as a revenue, and if you're tracking and monitoring it, you'll know that. And number 1, and probably most importantly, marketing success is based on a system approach. This is where anyone that's attempting to market today should probably have a solid strategic plan that looks at all 5 aspects of marketing and makes a decision with the practice owner, how are we going to play in each one of these buckets, or do we play in all of these buckets? First bucket being branding. Everyone should have a unique value position, something you're telling the market in a consumer digestible way that is different about you. Internal marketing. What are we doing to educate and inform every patient that comes through the practice? Do our materials create the right image? Patient referral marketing. Do we recognize and reward and thank patients for coming to our practice and referring patients to our practice? Professional referral marketing. So, a dental practice is not going to do much professional referral marketing. A cardiology practice is going to do a lot of professional referral marketing. And then external marketing, or what we call direct to the public. So, does our website work well for us? Are we a plastic surgery practice who will do advertising and these type things, whereas a cardiology practice, just a well-optimized website that we find patients who are searching for us? So again, it's important that all of those aspects are taken into account when developing a strategic plan for a practice and when moving forward. So, talk a little bit about what we see as the way to have a systematic approach. This is something we call the scientific method of marketing. It's 4 spokes of the wheel. We trademarked this a long time ago. The first spoke is learn. Don't make the mistakes other people that have made. Understand what types of marketing works for each practice. Second spoke is to have a well-developed plan to decide who will be responsible and how you play in those areas. The third spoke is to measure, and I'll tell you a simple technique to do that. It's simply to have the person at the front desk ask each and every new patient call, who can we thank today, or how did you find out about us? And make a notation. If you're getting tons of calls off the website, but then when patients appoint, you actually track that only a couple of them said the website was your source, your website is working great, you have some problems at your front desk and how the practice is being presented. And if you don't track and measure, you won't know. Based on that tracking and measuring, you can evaluate your ROI, your return on investment, and decide how you want to continue or not continue playing in each one of these buckets. So that brings us to the end of the top 10 successful secrets. I want to thank everybody very much for participating in this webinar. Again, please hang on. We're going to answer a few questions, and then we have an offer for everyone that has attended this evening.
I have one question on my end, and they're asking, do you think Yellow Page print ads hold value in today's market?
I will tell you no, that most likely you can eliminate everything other than a bold listing in the Yellow Pages. You see it out there in the marketplace. The Yellow Pages are running scared. They're trying to look like the internet. They're doing lots of things to pretend they are the internet. They're not. Now, this really depends on the type practice you are. If I was an audiology practice and all my patients were 72 years and up, I would still advertise in the Yellow Pages. Subspecialty practice, cardiology, oncology, even though your patient group is older, they don't shop you in the Yellow Pages. They look on the internet, they find out from friends, they find out from their doctor where to go. They only really find you there. So for healthcare practices, Yellow Pages are really dead. Now, Yellow Pages will continue to exist. We don't know how much longer with the rise of the internet, but they will continue to exist for plumbers and auto mechanics and all of that, so they'll be around. But in terms of healthcare practices, it really doesn't make sense to be other than a bold listing in case people lose you. Now, if you already have a Yellow Page ad and you want to say, I'm not sure whether I want to abandon it or not, start tracking at your front desk. Have the person at the front desk, who can we thank today, or how did you hear about us? If nobody says Yellow Pages, you can be pretty comfortable, you can walk away from it. More importantly, if somebody does mention the Yellow Pages, that's the one where you need a little follow-on question and you need to ask, is that where you looked our number up, or is that where you found us the first time? And the majority of times they'll go, oh no, that's just where I found your number. My friend told me about, my doctor, I heard about you somewhere else.
Thanks, Jonathan. My other question is, someone is inquiring about their website or a potential website. How many pages should there be in a website?
Yeah, there's no simple answer to the number of pages. Really, it has to do with the construction of each page. So there's no problem with having a very robust, in-depth website. If you're looking to just get into it initially and you want to make a minimum investment, you know, some practices can have 7 or 8, but this is a very specific question for your practice. More importantly, the key issue is the amount of messaging on each page. You wouldn't want to settle for a smaller website and just fill it with too much information. It's very important. We had another question here that's kind of similar to that, which was, you know, I've got a, let's see, it says I got a person in my town that says they can do websites, you know, is that a good way to go? Well, I like to tell anybody that's evaluating their partner in healthcare marketing, if that person asks you to write anything, you know you've already made a misstep, because you're not designed to write in the voice of the customer. So I say to people, you can find somebody on every street corner to do a website for a couple of $1,000s, a graphic designer. It may not be able to be optimized. It may lack a lot of the things that are necessary in 2011 to be a very active website. But the key thing is, if they're looking for you to write the information, you're not designed to write in the voice of the customer in simple, easy, consumer digestible ways to answer.
Okay, while we're on the topic of websites, how does one know whether their website is good or effective for targeting their audience that they would like to target?
Yeah, again, a combination of things. One is that you want to be tracking at the front desk, and if you're not getting any phone calls that are resulting in appointments, if you're not leading them to appointments. So a simple example, every page of your website should tell a patient how to appoint. You don't want to get a patient 3 pages deep in your website and have to come back to the home page to figure out how do I get in touch with you or how do I make an appointment. But if you're not getting calls that say we got you from the website, that's a pretty effective way. There are some services out there. One of them is called Alexa.com. I believe it's Alexa. You can actually put your URL in. It'll give you a rating, which will tell you how much volume is coming to your website. If you're not getting much volume, you know, obviously the other important thing in terms of the website is understanding how consumers search. So it's rare that a mom is going to search for an orthodontist when they want their kids' teeth straightened. They're gonna search things like, I need my kids' teeth straightened, you know, teeth braces, things like that. These are the things you need to be optimized for in your website to understand that.
Okay, and do you have any questions on your end, Jonathan? Or?
Well, I had 3 that I kind of grouped together that are
Okay.
kind of similar. They were one was from an orthodontist, one was from a dentist, one was from a cardiologist, and they were asking about all the different types of marketing I talked about, what was the most valuable. Well, for a cardiologist, because you're predominantly, as you know, professional referral, this is where a liaison, someone calling on these practices, making sure they're happy and know everything about you would make sense. An orthodontist, it's a combination of both. You get a lot of referrals from dentists, so a liaison calling on them, but also good consumer initiatives such as a website. And then there was one about a dentist. Dentist is not going to get a lot of professional referral unless they're a very unique subspecialty. In that case, they're going to do direct-to-consumer marketing and these type things.
All right, great. Okay, I know that there are questions still to be answered in the chat log, and we apologize. We just want to make sure that we have enough time to finish the remainder of the slides in our presentation. But however, we do promise you that we will email you or call you, whatever method you prefer, to answer your question personally and privately.
And thank you very much for your attention. I just wanted to make a couple of comments here. A lot of people, after hearing this type of information in the other webinars that they've done, they're like, okay, so how do I get started and how might practice builders help me? Well, what we would recommend you do if you're interested is you attend one of our 2-day Accelerate Your Practice Success programs. This can be done in a group setting. We do these in just about every weekend around the country in a hotel. Or if you have a large practice with multiple practitioners, we actually can come on site and do it at your practice. What goes on at these Accelerate Your Practice programs? Well, it's about 50% learning, where we provide more in-depth information on marketing, do a complete review of all of your marketing materials, an analysis of your practice, and that's part of that private consultation. Basically, it's a 3-phase process. You complete a questionnaire, we do an upfront interview with you over the phone, come out for face-to-face meetings either on site or at the workshop, and then design a strategic plan for you. And it really provides you this step-by-step success plan if you're interested. We have some offers this evening for anyone that attended. And again, as Lyra said, we will get back to you on any questions that are remaining in the log. And I thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Jonathan. I will go ahead and close, but again, we're going to thank Jonathan for his time tonight and for being able to share this valuable information for obtaining your practice success. Just wanted to quickly go over the special webinar attendee discounted offers. We mentioned the workshop as well as the on-site consultation where we will come to your practice. And so just a couple of bullet points there of what comprehensive steps it'll include. And if you're interested, just type us a message in the chat box or give us a call at 1-800-679-1262. And lastly, I just wanted to mention the upcoming webinar for February. It will talk about social media and how it can bring awareness to your practice. It will occur on February 24th, same time, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific, and will be presented by yours truly. So I hope to see everyone there, and it'll be a great learning experience for everybody. And thank you so much. And again, we will be sending out a recorded version in addition to the slides to everyone who registered. So everyone who may have missed the first part of the webinar, again, we apologize for the technical glitch. We'll be able to catch the beginning that way. Again, call us if you have any questions or concerns or any comments on the webinar at 1-800-679-1262. Thank you again and good night.